So yeah, I figured we'd have this discussion as well. Since we're already here doing the thing, we're going to take a different approach to this because Patreon did the same thing a couple years back and the same conversations were had. Well, what's that going to mean for Patreon? It means they're going to be respected by their investors. And well, who else was it? Tumblr, same thing. This isn't a new conversation, and that's the whole thing. And this is the thing, is they said flat out that they're still allowing nudity on their platform. So if it pertains to body art, if it pertains to actual art with nudity, if it pertains to tasteful images and things like that of like actual photo shoots. So they're not doing away with that content entirely. They're only doing away with sexually explicit content. So like if you look at it, sexually explicit, which means actual intercourse, genital, things like that. So like these are extreme things. So one, it's not going to get rid of all their content majorly. It's not going to. Two, it's also something that they had to do. And what I mean by it is this. Here's the real kicker. And like I did some deep dive into this as well and have been really looking into it. And credit to Devin Nash that like I really saw his video come up after I had been looking at some of the things going on because I thought it was a little odd that they were doing this at first. And I really looked into the history of Patreon as well and why these things happen. So it really boils down to they have a few different people that process their transactions. One being Stripe. Stripe is one of, if not the largest online processor of credit in the world. And they do a large percentage of these things. With that, that's where some of their payments get processed is through Stripe. But Stripe has a lower cost of operation. But Stripe is also used by like Amazon and a bunch of other major companies. So if these companies were to go to a thing and say, hey, we don't want OnlyFans operating these things, or if they don't even specifically target and say, hey, we don't want any sexual explicit content on the platform, then guess what? If they have the choice between, because a lot of people would ask this question of like, why would Stripe even drop them if they're making millions, if not billions in dollars going through it across the board? Well, look at it this way. If they have a company like Amazon that says, hey, don't do it, and choice between Amazon and OnlyFans, who are they going to choose? And that's what it really boils down to. So this is a money issue. I know the initial thought is that OnlyFans is doing away with all their content. They're not. Because you're still allowed to have nudity on there. And it was set up as a platform for fans of people on other platforms to do their thing. And then they tried to expand it just as Patreon did, where they tried to make it a primary platform. And that's not it. So here's the other problem is now they're putting OnlyFans in a situation. So let's take the money side out of it for just a moment and have this other discussion of they're putting OnlyFans at risk of having to do a lot of work because of major issues with, I'm trying to find the actual article. Like the reason I pulled these up is like this is the BBC, New York Times, like this is where this stuff is hitting to. But you're talking about people that were putting things on there that for certain subscription levels they were offering certain acts out of it. That borders on the edge of prostitution at that point. So now the people that had done this are putting OnlyFans in a position of breaking regional prostitution laws. And that's where it's an issue. Now, I'm going to say something else, though. Like, if the people that are making stuff on the platform, I don't care, male, female, whatever, I don't care. If they're comfortable doing this and it's supporting them, so be it. Because it's a digital platform and that puts them at way lower risk than it would to be face-to-face doing these things anyway. Like, fine. But at the point that it breaches into these other areas where it starts to hit in the financial side where it's breaching what the actual payment processing people are allowing and things like that, that's where it becomes a problem. So that creates the other thing too. And I mean, I'll touch on that briefly, is it's a lucrative thing. There's money to be had there. And I've said it flat out. Like, I don't have a problem with people doing whatever makes them comfortable. And as I said before, like, I'm not going to judge how other people choose to live their life as long as it doesn't impede my ability to live my life or others. But just know that at the point that you cross that line, that is what you are known for. The reason I say it like that is if you look at it in terms of like, I brought up who has ever started in the adult industry that we go, nope, they're not synonymous with the adult industry. And I can only think of one person, and that's Stallone, that really separated himself from it after the fact and made a lucrative career in Hollywood after all of that. I cannot name one other person right now. So once you cross that line into that type of content, that's really what you're known for. That's where creators are going to have to make a major decision on it, because let's look at history. We had Patreon, and this is why I bring up Patreon with it. Patreon did the same thing. Once they were pressed by their people who were processing their payments, they took away adult content. OnlyFans is doing the exact same thing now. So these creators have to make a decision where every couple years they're going to have to move to a new platform, and keep doing that, and lose part of their audience every time that happens, and run the risk of never growing again as they move to a new platform. That's option 1. Option 2, they go straight to the hub, and that's it. Option 3, they make a transition into more family-friendly content and stay there, but take a hit on their revenue, but at the same time, long term, have the option to get more sponsorships and things like that, because brands won't work with people that do that type of content. There's a very limited amount of brands that will. So that's the decision to be made. And that's where I really wanted to touch on it, is not from the platform of like, nope, not having it. People can make their own choice, but that's really what it boils down to. And I see creators saying, well, they take it as a personal attack. Well, they're taking away our ability to make content and be ourselves. No, they're taking their own ability to run their business and continue doing so. Because at the end of the day, the people owning and running the business are going to look out for their own best interest and not yours. And that's what it really boils down to. So back to our first discussion, talking about hate raids and everything like that, it is your responsibility to take care of your own content and not anyone else's. OnlyFans does not owe these people anything. So that's why I thought it was crucial to talk about this at the same time that we were talking about hate raids and just talking about Twitch in general. And our last conversation was just talking about streaming as a whole. And I guess I look at it more from the business side, Alien. So I'm not looking at about the stigma of it. It's more so about this. Let's say I have stake in multiple companies, or I've started multiple companies. I start OnlyFans because I think this is going to be a great business venture to allow creators to showcase quality content to their respective communities. Okay. And that's one of the businesses that I own. And that's what it starts as and everything like that. And then I start a second business as well that is coding and blah, 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 to bring youth into the coding and different business aspect of it. So my investors now include parents and things like that. And then this moves to adult content. But this other business that I own is now still aimed at just children. What do these investors think about this business at that point? So it's not so much about whether we lessen the level of disgust. It's that most of these businesses that own things, or at least have stake in them, have stake in multiple things, and their face and name is on that. So at the point it's associated with other things, they now risk losing all of the other stuff because of this one thing. And that's where OnlyFans isn't worth it at that point. That's why I wanted to have the discussion, because this hits on a little different piece of it than just like, hey, they're censoring creators and it's utter bull and it needs to stop. Because that's not it. There's so much more to the discussion than just stopping what content is visible. It's not censoring at all. And I'll go back to my original statement that I made as it pertained to people requesting Twitch to change things. If you don't like it, make your own platform. If people want to see it that much, then you could route people to your own platform. And if it does well, then continue that platform opened up for other people to use. So we just talked about this yesterday. We're going to lead off with this here. OnlyFans reverses their explicit content ban. That didn't take long. So yes, I'm sure they realized and they crunched the numbers, the amount of users they have that are making said content far exceeded the amount of extra revenue they're going to spend on it. So I'm going to guess in the near future, they might be dropping one of their major creditors as an entity and basically taking the hit on the extra charge for everything happening. Or the other kicker, that they were just doing it to keep their names in the media, as Twyla said so eloquently from the other room. And I'm going to say this, like, at the end of the day, it was primarily impacting female creators, and in the creator space on YouTube, on Twitch, and in most spaces, there's not many females sitting in that top 1%. So I don't care either way. As long as they're comfortable with it, fine.